Marginal analysis is really kind of at the heart of the key assumptions that we're making in economics. And it's kind of at the heart of the disconnect in a lot of ways between an economic perspective and what we think should be based on what we see in the real world. So, sometimes when we make decisions, we're not necessarily aware of the marginal nature, or we might be doing something like considering sunk costs when we should be ignoring sunk costs in terms of rational consumers making marginal decisions. But again, when you see the word marginal, the word additional is always going to be substitutable in terms of reading and understanding the question. So for A, if we say, what is Martha's additional benefit for the fifth unit of good X, what we want to know is what of this total benefit from good X came explicitly from the fifth unit. So when Martha consumes 4 units of good X, she gets $40 in total benefit. But when she consumes 5 units of good X, she only gets $41 in total benefit. So the change, or the increase, or the marginal benefit for the fifth unit was only $1. And that's really what we're looking at here, is the additional benefit is just the change in total benefit going to the fifth unit, in this case from the fourth unit. So we're given a fixed budget of $20, and she's going to spend it all on 2 goods, X and Y. So this is a common setup and assumption here, that you have a set budget and all of it is going to be spent, and you're going to be purchasing or choosing between 2 goods. Sometimes it'll be, like leisure goods and all other goods, or necessities and all other goods. And that way you're kind of looking at that trade-off. But again, the real world is much more complicated. So when we look at these examples, we're going to go ahead and assume we always spend all of our money, and that we only are looking at these 2 goods. So the first thing I did here was take the $20 budget and the prices of each good and divide them. So $20 divided by $4 per unit of X, that means a maximum of 5 units of good X can be purchased. $20 divided by $2 per unit of good Y means that a maximum of 10 units of good Y can be purchased. So this table is showing the total benefit measured in dollars that Martha receives from the consumption of each good. And so what I want to do real quickly is I'm going to add a column here. We'll do a column here. So when you go from 0 to 1 unit of good X, the marginal benefit, or the additional benefit, is that entire benefit of $16. When you go from 1 to 2 units of good X, we're essentially taking $28 minus 16. And so you've got a $12 marginal benefit for going from 1 to 2 units. To go from 2 to 3 units is an $8 marginal benefit, because we're going to go... And then from 3 to 4 units, we've got a $4 marginal benefit. And from 4 to 5, we've got $1. So we're just subtracting total benefit from more from the total benefit from less. Alright, and then go MB of Y. So we've got $10, $8, $6, $4, $2. So this is the additional benefit of going to another unit. Now what we're going to need to do is figure out the total, where we maximize our total benefit. And there's a couple of ways we can do that pretty simply, and we're actually going to do both with this example just to understand it thoroughly. But we could add up all the different possibilities of combinations we could end up buying with our $20 budget and see which bundle of the two goods represents the most total benefit overall. Or we could use the maximization rule, and in this case it's where the marginal benefit or marginal utility of spending money on good X is equal to the additional benefit or the marginal benefit of spending money on good Y. So if we were to, so for example, when we spend, if we were to buy 3 units of good X, we're going to spend $12 because good X costs $4 each. 3 times 4 is $12. Now we've got a remaining budget of $8. So with $8, we can buy 4 units of good Y, and therefore we end up with 3 units of good X and 4 units of good Y. That satisfies our demand or our constraint of our budget, and we're able to demand enough to where we get both goods and we spend our entire budget. Now when we look closer, the marginal utility per dollar for spending the dollars and going from 2 units of good X to 3 units of good X, the additional benefit is $8, the additional cost is $4. So the marginal utility per dollar is 8 over 4, or 2. So we're getting $2 in kind of bang for every buck spent when we go from 2 units of good X to 3 units of good X. So let me pop an H on this box. There we go. So we've got 3 units of good X and 4 units of good Y, and the marginal utility per dollar of the 3rd unit of good X, I'm going to put marginal benefit per dollar for 3rd of X equals $8 over $4 equals 2. And marginal benefit per dollar for the 4th unit of Y is, we're going from 3 to 4 units, so our total benefit increases by $4. Our total cost increases by $2, so we have 4 over 2, and that's also equal to. So where the marginal utility per dollar spent between the two goods is equal, that's where we know we're going to be maximizing our total benefit. And actually, let's do... Alright. So now we've got that represented here. Really, we kind of have gone out of order, but with a lot of these free response questions, the key is in understanding the full concept thoroughly. And so we, as the most valuable bit of information from this is the optimal combination. But it's also asked us a couple of other things. So we've figured out A, which is the marginal benefit or the additional benefit when we go from 4 to 5 units of good X is $1. For B, that calculate the total consumer surplus if Martha consumes 5 units of good X and show your work. So here's where the consumer surplus is going to be the difference between the total benefit and the total cost that Martha pays. So if she pays $4 and the total benefit to her is $4, there is zero consumer surplus because all of the benefit that was received was paid for directly dollar for dollar. If she receives $20 in benefits for $4 in spending, or in this case for going from 0 to 1 units, she gets $16 in total benefit, and she's buying 1 unit of good X, which is going to cost her only $4. So she's getting $16 in benefit for $4 in cost. So essentially every dollar she spends is getting her $4 in value back from that. And so here we've got the setup where we've got $16 of marginal benefit from the first unit minus the $4 cost is $12 in surplus from that first unit. The second unit is going to be $12 minus 4, so $8 in total surplus. The third unit is going to be 8 minus 4, or $4. The fourth unit is 4 minus 4, so 0. And then because she consumes the fifth unit in the setup of the question, then we're actually going to end up with $1 in total benefit added and $4 in total cost added. So we actually lose $3 worth of that total surplus that was previously held. If she had only consumed 4 units, she would actually be better off than by consuming that fifth unit. So we're going to actually take 3 away, so we end up with 12 plus 8 plus 4 minus 3, so we get a $21 consumer surplus for consuming 5 units of good X. So for part C, it asks, Martha is currently consuming 4 units of good X and 2 units of good Y. And it says to use marginal analysis to explain why this combination is not optimal for Martha. So the reason why is that the marginal utility per dollar spent on each good is not equal. We know it's going to be the optimal combination when the marginal utility per dollar is equal for both goods. And so the way we would the reason why I didn't go much further with this explanation is specifically because that's all that an AP structured free response question is wanting from you is when it says use marginal analysis to explain why this combination is not optimal. The reason why is that the marginal utility per dollar for spent on good X is not equal to the marginal utility per dollar spent on good Y. The fact that it's not equal, the fact that there's less marginal utility per dollar for one or more for another are all different kind of ways that you can answer this. But it's less, there's no element of your score that would be from calculating anything but the marginal utility per dollar on either of those goods. So for example, 4 units of good X means going from 3 to 4 units, we end up with $4 in total benefit added. $40 minus 36 is $4 in total benefit added. And let's see what my framing is. There we go. $4 in total benefit, $4 in total cost. Therefore, 4 over 4 is just $1 per dollar in terms of return on the value. For the second unit of good Y, we end up with $8 in additional benefit and only $2 spent, so we get $4 in kind of bang for every buck spent. And because the marginal utility per dollar of spent on Y is 4, marginal utility per dollar spent on good X is 1, those two are not equal. And that's essentially all we would need to report for C. For D is really what we would kind of then take from this question as maybe someone who works in a business trying to make decisions, or not necessarily works in a forecasting. This is where we'd be more concerned with optimal combinations. And with D, the optimal combination is where marginal benefit per dollar is equal, and we find that at the third unit of good X and the fourth unit of good Y. We spend $12 total on 3 units of good X, spend $8 total on 4 units of good Y, but the additional benefit of the last dollar spent on both goods is bringing us the same value. And then for E, indicate whether each of the following will cause the optimal quantity of good Y to increase, decrease, or stay the same. So first, if the price of good Y doubles, then everything else remaining constant, we can now afford less of good Y, and therefore the optimal quantity decreases. Kind of as an affordability. Martha's income falls to $10 with no changes in prices. So again, less money available means less money available to spend on both goods. So the optimal quantity for good Y as well as good X is going to decrease. And then Martha's income doubles and the price of both goods double. And here we're looking at a question of relative prices, and nothing in reality has changed. So she can still buy the same number of goods, it's just the receipt has doubled numbers and her paycheck has doubled numbers. But everything that she puts in her cart is essentially going to remain the same. And so we would end up with decrease, decrease, stay the same.